I'm here at Delta Membranes to talk to Mike because Delta Membranes have very kindly donated some materials to the barn, and really, Mike, I'd like you to tell me about them because first of all we're going to be using an epoxy resin to the flooring. So what is epoxy resin and what does it do?
Well, epoxy resin is essentially a protective waterproof coating which is also extremely durable, which can stop water from emerging through a structure when there's water on the outside of the structure trying to get in, and should water ever penetrate through a structure, for example bypassing the resin because someone may have left a door open or there may have been some kind of opening that was drilled or formed after the application of the product, we need it to also be resistant from the inside. So we need water from the inside not to soak into the substrate, because once water soaks into a substrate then it has a drying time implication. So there may be a period of weeks or months for a structure to dry out from the inside. If we have an epoxy coating on the inside, then we're not allowing any moisture from that water to penetrate that structure. So we're completely designing out any drying out time and lengthy delays in reoccupation of that property. So really, it's working from both sides. It's working to stop water entering in the first place, and should water enter, and it's also minimising any disruption because we can simply clean out the inside coating, if you like, the surface of the epoxy, and we can sanitise it and we can reoccupy that property much quicker. So minimising any disruption or any issues for the occupants, because getting back in sooner is so important.
Absolutely. I mean, the average person nowadays is out of their home for 9 months, so anything like this that can reduce the amount of recovery time is ideal, and that's what we want to showcase within the property.
Sure.
Can I ask you, do they use that kind of thing for a car ferry? You know, when you're driving in and out, you always think of cars and it's often wet in there. Is it a similar
It's a similar
kind of
product.
Yeah.
They're all resin-based products, and the point of those products is to preserve the substrates from contamination. So, for example, on a car ferry, we have cars and we have oil dripping from the cars, which we don't want to penetrate into the concrete or the deck surface. In the dairy industry, for example, they need surfaces that can be easily wiped down and cleaned and hosed down. Obviously, we can't allow penetration through those coatings to damage the building fabric, insulation, etc. that we find in walls and under floors. Therefore, an epoxy coating is an ideal product to use. The epoxy coatings are also very durable, so they will take heavy vehicular traffic and the like. So in the brewing industry, food, dairies, automotive, heavy duty engineering, these products are used pretty much throughout. Yeah, so it's based on that technology.
So why not use it in our homes?
Well,
homes that are at risk of
absolutely,
flooding.
yeah.
It seems a no-brainer to me.
People just haven't thought of it yet.
No. So we've got to sort of add that new thought to have it in our homes so we can recover more quickly. So that's brilliant, and thanks for donating that. So can we move on to other products that you've provided?
Yeah.
I know Delta have given a lot of time and support to the overall design of the barn to make it flood recoverable, really. So can you talk about the other materials that you've indeed donated to us?
Sure. Well, the overall concepts of the resilience aspects of the barn is that we try to exclude water. Obviously, that's the ideal scenario, but the most successful strategies also anticipate water entry as well as water exclusion, not because of any particular failure of the product, but because someone may simply leave a door open or a floodgate open and water can get in that way. So those are the most successful strategies. Now, in addition to the epoxy, what we've used is an anti-salting, anti-lime primer called Polysil TG500, which we normally spray onto the substrate before we put the epoxy on.
And substrate is the floor?
Substrate is the floor or the walls.
Whatever
yeah,
you're
the
putting
surface,
it on.
normally mineral surface, be it stone or brick or concrete, that kind of thing.
So you sprayed that first?
We spray it
before
on first,
the epoxy?
We give the walls and the floor surfaces a good spray, saturation coat of Polysil. Now what the polysill does is it locks in free lime, and it locks in what we call hygroscopic salts, which are inherent in the earth, if you like, which you know, the stones contain, and clay and etc. and concrete. Because what happens is when water goes into a substrate which is mineral based, it can dissolve the salts which are there, and when the substrate dries out, the salts migrate to the surface. Okay. Now when we look at buildings and brickwork sometimes, particularly new brickwork, we see a white efflorescence on the outside of that brickwork, and that's what that is. It's mineral salts that have been dissolved by water, and as the water evaporates as it dries out, it leaves back behind the residue. Now these are aggressive in the sense that the salts can delaminate coatings from the internal face. So if we didn't use a salt primer, such as the polysill, the possibility is that the structure could try and dry out on its own, and as it does, the salts come to the surface and break the bond between the epoxy and that surface, and that can lead to blistering, and once it blisters, all we need is a bit of foot traffic or a bit of wear, and it'll begin to delaminate the whole coating, so the primer is really important. Now, most of the barn is covered by the epoxy, and the primer having been put on first, but in addition to that we have issues to consider, such as surface penetrations through the fabric of the building for pipes and gas pipes and things like that, and soil stacks and the like. Okay. We also have gaps normally at window reveals or between the stone wall and the actual frame of the window or the door. Now these may not look like very big gaps, but when we have pressurised water, i.e. a bit of hydrostatic pressure on the outside of the building, even though it's only to 600 millimetres or maybe 900 millimetres, that's actually exerting a lot of force, and water will squirt through under some very intense pressure. So we need to look at those defects, and we have a product called KB Flex 200, which is a plastic product which is applied via a mastic gun into these very small cracks, which will instantly seal those and deal with pressurised water. So that's one of the products that we're using on Eden Barn. In addition to that, we have areas of stone which has been badly pointed in the past. So where the water's been put in between the stones, weathering, etc., and age has made this cracking deteriorate. Those are also points of entry, weaknesses in the structure. So we're going to rake out the joints around the door reveals, and we're going to repoint them using a product called Repair Mortar Plus, which will then expand and fill those gaps around those weak areas. So really we're looking at getting continuity between this broad finish of the epoxy on the inside and these slight weaknesses around door and window reveals. So it's the surface hardening primer, the Polysil TG500 as a pre-coating, followed by the Delta water-based epoxy in a minimum of 2 coats to provide that resistance from the outside and resilience from the inside. And these are augmented by the sealing products around these weaknesses, the door reveals, etc., and the Repair Mortar Plus to hopefully give an integrated approach and a watertight solution to this project.
So really, your advice to anybody thinking about doing something like this is to think of every single way that water
Absolutely.
can find its wicked way into your home.
Absolutely, yeah.
And using your products,
yes.
we can minimise that.
Yes, absolutely. There is a British standard, 85500, written in 2015, and in that standard there are various diagrams which will help anybody who chooses to look it up identify pathways of water which can enter a building and consequently flood it, and we seek to address all those weaknesses using our range of products as we've just described.
Well, thank you very much, and again, thank you very much for your donation of your
That's
time,
pleasure.
Expertise, and all your materials.
We're very pleased and honoured to be involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.